to see you all here today, and it's a real privilege to be here in Sunderland again at Labour North Conference. This region has a mighty Labour history and Labour tradition. You're a Labour heartland, and we're proud of that. Friends, we're no longer in government, and we have a Tory-led government which is determined to do its worst to hard-working families up and down the country. But even though we were defeated in the last general election, we are not defeated in spirit, and there has never been a more important time for the whole Labour team to come together and to fight to protect this region and this country from what the government is doing. And we will stand up for Labour values, we will protect people from the Tories, and we will make the Lib Dems pay. Yes. And as we face important local council elections, now more than ever before, people need the protection of strong Labour councillors and strong Labour councils. And you made important progress last May, here in Sunderland, in North Tyneside, over in Allerdale, in Redcar, Cleveland and Stockton, and there were not just cheers in Newcastle, but all around the country when Labour took back Newcastle City Council. And I want to pay tribute to the dedicated and determined campaigning spirit of each and every one of you. Last night, at the packed-out gala dinner here in this hall, we honoured local campaigners, men and women, young and old, all fighting street by street, taking to the fight to the Lib Dems and the Tories. And it's that spirit that will see us win even more council seats in May, and it's that spirit which will see Labour win the next general election and kick the Tories out. You will make gains across Tyneside, in Gateshead, in Hartlepool, and if you win Carlisle, we'll all celebrate your success. So get out there and do it. I also want to say something about those of you here who stand as Labour candidates in areas where we don't expect to win. You are carrying the flag for Labour. And it's often a good campaign which sows the seeds to grow Labour's support and score a win in the future. So to me, there's no such thing as a paper candidate. You're pioneering candidates, and I thank you for what you do. And I want to see our team and our candidates reflecting the communities you serve. That means not just men, but women too, people from different ethnic backgrounds, and that means people from professional backgrounds, and also people from manual backgrounds. We are strongest as a team of men and women from all walks of life. And it's a heavy responsibility at this time to be a Labour councillor, because you're on the front line as the Tory Lib Dem government batters the North. Though we can see all around us the massive progress Labour made in the North, new schools and hospitals, more jobs, better services, we all know that there was still much further to go. But instead of further progress, there's now a vicious turning of the clock back, and people are suffering. And David Cameron made it clear, this is someone who doesn't care about the North and doesn't understand the North. No wonder he keeps his visits to the North a closely guarded secret. And a couple of weeks ago, your MP Mary Glindon asked the Prime Minister about the North East at Prime Minister's Questions. And what did he reply? There was a kind of long, agonised pause, and then he blustered on about Aberdeen. That tells you everything about David Cameron and the North. And we're seeing now what the Tories always do, reverting to type. Lighting the lives of men, women and children. In what he does, what he actually does, Cameron is no different to Thatcher. We all know that he made promises before the election, which he's now broken. But there's one promise that he's faithfully kept, And that was to take his revenge on the North and on all English regions to see the North suffer the most. And it's particularly harsh for young people. Long-term unemployment among young people in this region are 143% in just 12 months. You know, as a parent, you encourage your child through school, you see them off to college, see them go after their first job. And if you see them be told over and over again, you're not wanted, that is a terrible thing for a young person, to feel that they've been thrown on the scrap heap before they've even begun. And that is why for Labour, at our very core, we say unemployment is never a price worth paying. Oppose the savage cuts in public spending, which has devastated jobs in the North in the private sector as well as in the public sector. And that is why we are determined, so determined, to make this just a one-term coalition. And we're all working together as a team. Your team of Labour North MPs, those of you with long experience in the House of Commons, and the new team of men and women who you sent from the North to fight for our principles and fight for your region in the House of Commons. They are a mighty force in the House of Commons, and I want personally to pay my tribute and to thank my parliamentary aide, Ian Lavery. Here's someone. Where are you, Ian? His wisdom and advice to me is invaluable. And I have to say, he has to use all that negotiating experience from his time in the NUN. And just when I'm heading in for a big row with my colleagues in the PLP, Ian makes a humanitarian intervention. And he's got more peacemaking skills than Kofi Annan. So thank you very much. Your Labour North MPs are holding the government to account, charting the impact of the government cuts and making sure that the truth is told. Together with your trade unions, and I want to particularly thank trade union affiliates for the part you play in our party year in, year out, in good times and bad. The Tories and the Lib Dems will try and sever the links between the trade unions and Labour, but we will not let them. And at the heart of our team, ably supported by Fiona Stanton and our regional office, is our members. And we've got 3,400 more who've joined us since the general election. So on the doorsteps and on the phones, campaigning towards May, we are saying to people, Labour is with you. Labour is with you on jobs, with you on the concerns about the squeeze on living standards, with you in your concerns about the cuts in police numbers. And as much as we see the government wreaking havoc on the economy, there is another area of British life that they are taking a wrecking ball to, and that's our NHS. And just at the same time as they squeeze the NHS finances, they're plunging it into a massive top-down reorganisation, a shake-up so big that the chief executive of the NHS said it could be seen from outer space. This is the Prime Minister at his worst, arrogant, out of touch, with a belief that he knows better than the doctors and the nurses and the health workers. He has the cheek to denounce them as vested interests. How dare he? They dedicate their lives to caring for our sick. To him, they're a vested interest. To us, they are the lifeblood of the NHS. The NHS reorganisation is complex, and it is, but at the heart, it's simple and devastating. It is privatisation. And I want you to join me in paying tribute to Andy Burnham, who is leading our fight back on this. Next week, Labour peers in the House of Lords will try and stop the bill. And it will be to the eternal shame of the Lib Dems when they wring their hands but then vote with the Tories. This privatisation of the NHS is something no one voted for and no one wants. And as Ed Miliband says, wrecking the NHS will be David Cameron's poll tax. And he's right. And what about the Lib Dems? Just like they've sided with the Tories on the NHS, they're of course doing the same on the economy. Voting for VAT increases, voting for the hike in tuition fees, voting for the cuts in police, voting for all the cuts that are too far and too fast and stifling economic growth. You know, the only thing now that Nick Clegg stands up for is when David Cameron comes in the room. And the Tories tell people that they want to cut the deficit, but because firms are shrinking and people are being thrown out of work, the deficit is not coming down under the Tories, it is going up. The Tories are telling people that there's no alternative, but there is an alternative, and this is their choice, it's the wrong choice. The alternative is what Ed Miliband and Ed Balls have been setting out, that when our economy is struggling to recover from a global recession, then the government must step in. And we have set out our 5-point plan for jobs and for growth. And Ed Balls is challenging George Osborne, the Chancellor, in next month's budget. Cut VAT. Cut VAT on home improvements. Cut national insurance for small firms who take on new employees. Bring forward public investment in infrastructure projects. Reintroduce Labour's tax on bankers' bonuses to help young people into work and build more homes. And Ed Miliband is showing that there is a different way, that we don't have to put up with banks wrecking the economy and then paying themselves massive bonuses, that we can use the banks to help us cut tuition fees for young people, that we don't have to let the energy companies rip off elderly people, that we must have a more responsible capitalism. So we know times are tough, but I know that your spirit is strong and your determination is fierce. And I know that each and every one of you will not rest until we've driven this wretched government out of office.